My 10-year-old daughter's face crumpled as my boss, right in front of the entire office, pronounced me worthless, a failure as a father, incapable of timely pickups because of my perceived mediocrity. Yet Derek Hartwell remained oblivious to a crucial detail. For the past 15 years, I had been a Navy SEAL, meticulously trained to maintain composure even when chaos reigned. This very calm was destined to become his gravest miscalculation. For more chronicles of deceit, please like and subscribe, and share your city or country in the comments below. Let me take you back to that Tuesday afternoon, the exact moment everything changed. I was standing in Derek's office, the setting sun streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows on the 42nd floor. The opulence struck me, the luxurious leather chairs, the grand mahogany desk, and the breathtaking cityscape stretched out below. Derek never missed an opportunity to flaunt his success, his importance. My daughter, Sophia, sat quietly in a small, gray chair in the corner, waiting for me. She was supposed to be in school, but earlier that morning, my ex-wife Rachel had called, citing a work emergency and requesting an early pickup. Typical Rachel, always an urgent matter, always demanding adjustments from me. With childcare falling through, bringing Sophia to the office had been my only option. She was a good kid, quiet, absorbed in her tablet, drawing horses and clouds with the typical 10-year-old's innocent focus. Derek rose from behind his desk, still impeccably dressed in his tailored suit, his Rolex, a watch more valuable than my car, gleaming on his wrist. His gaze first flickered to Sophia, then back to me. It was then I witnessed the subtle shift in his expression, a dark shadow crossing his face. "You know, Marcus," his voice was intentionally loud, resonating through the office. I could feel the hushed anticipation in the hallway. "I've been reviewing your performance this quarter, and honestly, it's pathetic. Not just bad, but truly pathetic. You lack drive, vision, backbone. You're simply dead weight, middle-aged, mediocre, going nowhere. And your salary? I'm still astonished HR approved it." My chest tightened, my hands turning cold. Then he turned to Sophia. "That's why your dad can't even pick you up on time from school, sweetie," Derek cooed, his voice laced with saccharine concern. "He's not important enough at his job. That's what happens when you're not good at anything. You end up just like your dad." A profound silence descended upon the office, a suffocating quiet that signals something terrible has just unfolded. I looked at my daughter. Her eyes welled up, tears threatening to spill. She fought bravely to hold them back, attempting to appear strong, but she was only 10. 10 years old, and she had just witnessed a powerful man declare her father worthless. I didn't shout. I didn't hurl his coffee cup through the window. I did not succumb to the impulses my old training might have encouraged. Instead, I calmly walked over to Sophia, took her small hand in mine, and together we exited that office, navigating past the stairs, the hushed whispers, down the elevator, out of the building, and into the car. "Dad, is Mr. Derek right?" she asked, her voice trembling. Are you not good enough?" I reassured her, "No, baby. He's just a scared man who needs to diminish others to feel important. That's his weakness, not yours, and certainly not mine." But even as I uttered those words, I knew I was lying, and I suspected she did too. That night, sleep eluded me. The scene replayed relentlessly in my mind. Derek's smug smile, Sophia's bewildered, hurt face, the deafening silence of 30 people who simply stood by, and the overwhelming feeling of powerlessness. Lying beside my wife, Rachel, in bed, I began to notice things I had been too blind to see before. Her phone was a constant fixture in her hand. She would smile at the screen, then quickly turn it away from me. She started wearing perfume on random days, even when staying home. Her voice subtly changed when taking unrecognized calls. She claimed she was going to the gym, only to return without a single bead of sweat. She'd say she was meeting a friend, but her wedding ring would be conspicuously absent upon her return. It wasn't stupidity I suffered from, but a deliberate refusal to acknowledge the obvious. 3 days after Derek subjected me to that humiliation in front of my daughter, Rachel left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. A single message was open, one line visible on the screen. "Can't wait to see you tonight. He'll be working late. Miss you." The number wasn't in her contacts, but a chilling certainty resonated deep within me. I knew exactly who it was. My boss. The very man who had just told my daughter I was worthless had been secretly involved with my wife for an unknown duration. That night, I again found myself sleepless, sitting on the couch, phone in hand, fixated on that single text message. My hands trembled, not yet from anger, but from something far more devastating. The dawning realization that I had been living a lie, completely unaware. Rachel emerged from the shower, wrapped in her pink towel, humming contentedly. She glided past me, oblivious to my presence in the darkened living room, and entered the bedroom. I heard drawers opening, subtle movements, then the whir of a blow dryer. I didn't confront her, not yet. My SEAL training instinctively kicked in. Observe, assess, plan. Do not react. Conceal your knowledge. The next morning, I did something unprecedented. I asked Rachel where she was headed. She reiterated, the gym. I followed her in my truck, maintaining a discreet 3-car distance. She didn't go to the gym. Instead, she drove to the Riverside Hotel on 5th Avenue, the upscale establishment with the gleaming glass lobby and high-end restaurants. She entered with an air of proprietorship, sunglasses adorning her face, wearing a dress she had purchased just last week, a charge I recalled seeing on the credit card statement. I sat in the parking lot for 2 agonizing hours. Then Derek pulled in. My boss, the man who had publicly shamed me in front of my daughter just 2 days prior. He walked into the same hotel, and I knew precisely his destination. I didn't follow him inside. I simply remained in my truck, both hands gripping the steering wheel, allowing the bitter truth to fully sink in. My wife. My boss. How long had this been happening? Weeks? Months? How many times had Rachel claimed she was at the gym only to be in a hotel room with Derek? How many times had she kissed me goodnight after sharing intimacy with him? And Sophia, had she ever witnessed them together? Had my daughter somehow pieced it together? I drove home slowly, deliberately. I didn't rush. I didn't lose control. I simply drove, contemplating what I now knew and what remained hidden. It struck me that Derek had chosen to humiliate me precisely because he understood his power over me. He wasn't merely sleeping with my wife. He reveled in my ignorance, in my perceived weakness and blindness, while he indulged in a twisted fantasy of dominance and superiority. This realization made the betrayal even more excruciating. It wasn't just infidelity, but an act of profound cruelty. Upon my arrival home, Rachel was already back from the gym, showered again, and dressed in different clothes. She was preparing lunch for Sophia in the kitchen. She looked at me as if nothing had transpired, as if she hadn't spent the past 2 hours in a hotel room with my boss. "Hey, babe," she greeted me with a smile. "Sophia has soccer practice at 4. Can you pick her up at 6? "Yes," I replied, my voice betraying no hint of the seismic shift that had just fractured my world. That evening, I picked Sophia up from soccer. She was tired, her hair still damp from the facility's showers. She recounted tales of her practice, scoring a goal, and her friend Mia being unkind. Normal, childlike concerns. I listened intently, my hands steady on the wheel as I drove. Then she uttered words that pierced me to the core. "Dad, why was Mr. Derek so mean to you at your office?" I froze. "What do you mean, honey?" "When you took me to work, he was really mean. He said bad things about you, and he was mean to me, too." My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "What did he say to you?" He said it was your fault I had to sit in his office, that you weren't important enough to pick me up on time. He said you weren't good at your job." I pulled over. I had to, my vision blurred. A visceral sensation of eruption swelled in my chest. I desperately needed to breathe, to remember my training, to remain calm, to think clearly when everything was unraveling. "Sophia, listen to me," I said, turning to face her. "Mr. Derek was wrong, and I am going to ensure he never says anything like that to you again. Do you understand me? Never again." She nodded, and I pulled her close, holding her as she shed a few tears. In that car, at that very moment, I made a silent vow. Derek Hartwell had no inkling of the man he was provoking, and by the time I was finished, he would rue the day he ever heard my name. The soccer fields were deserted now, just Sophia and me in my truck in the parking lot, the sun beginning its descent below the horizon. She had stopped crying a few minutes prior, but her small hand remained tightly clasped in mine, her pulse a tangible rhythm against my palm. A crucial question hovered, but I had to approach it delicately. I simply could not burden a 10-year-old with adult troubles, a mistake I had already made by allowing her to witness Derek's humiliation of me. I would not compound it by making her my unwitting informant. Yet I needed answers. I needed to grasp the full extent of Rachel and Derek's deception. "Sophia, I have a question for you, and I need you to answer me honestly, okay?" "You won't get into any trouble. I just need to know the truth." She looked up at me, her eyes still red from crying. "Okay, Dad." "Have you ever seen Mr. Derek and Mom together? Not at work or at school events. I mean, have you ever seen them together when it was just the two of them?" A long, unsettling silence followed. Too quiet. I observed her internal struggle, her consideration of whether to share something she had kept secret. "One time," she finally began, "Mom said I could go to the mall with my friend Leah and Leah's mom. We were supposed to meet at the shopping center at 3 o'clock, but because we arrived early, we decided to get smoothies at the juice place first. And I saw Mom and Mr. Derek in the lobby of the hotel next to the mall. An icy dread paralyzed my entire being. They were holding hands. Dad and Mr. Derek was kissing Mom's neck, and Mom was laughing. And then they went into the elevator together." I was speechless, rooted to the spot, simply holding my daughter's hand as she recounted watching her mother enter a hotel with my boss. My 10-year-old child had uncovered this infidelity while I remained oblivious. "When was this?" I inquired, maintaining a steady voice despite the turmoil raging within me. 3 weeks ago, the day you worked late for that project. Mom said I could go to the mall with Leah, but then when we saw them, I didn't want to follow Mom and Mr. Derek. It made me feel weird and sad." 3 weeks. They had been entangled for at least 3 weeks, to Sophia's knowledge. How much longer had it been before that? "Sophia, why didn't you tell me?" She cast her gaze downwards at her hands. "I didn't want you to be sad, and I didn't really understand what I was seeing. I just knew it was wrong. It felt wrong." I drew her close once more, embracing her, and silently vowed that this would be the last time my daughter would be burdened with adult secrets. No more, not after today. "Thank you for telling me," I said. "You did the right thing, and I need you to know that whatever happens next, none of this is your fault. Not any of it. Do you understand me?" She nodded, her head resting against my chest. I drove her home slowly, and upon our arrival, Rachel was in the kitchen preparing dinner. She appeared cheerful, wearing the dress Derek preferred. I could perceive it all now. With my eyes fully opened, I saw everything. The way she constantly checked her phone, the soft smile that played on her lips when she received messages, the recent habit of applying makeup even on days she remained at home. I maintained my composure. I assisted Sophia with her homework, partook in dinner, and then tucked her into bed, reading her 2 chapters from the book we were enjoying together. I kissed her forehead and expressed my boundless love for her. Afterward, I descended the stairs. Rachel was on the couch, engrossed in Netflix, her phone in hand. I settled beside her, remaining silent initially, simply observing her face, this woman I had married 15 years prior, this woman with whom I had built a life, this woman who had just given birth to the most beautiful creation I had ever witnessed. "Rachel, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth." She looked at me, and a subtle shift occurred in her expression. She knew. I couldn't explain how, but she understood that I knew. "What?" she asked, her voice already defensive. "Are you sleeping with Derek?" She didn't respond immediately. She averted her gaze, fidgeting with the fabric of the couch, and then uttered, "Yes." Just like that. Yes. No explanation, no apology, not even a defensible denial. Simply a brutal, unadorned yes. "How long?" 5 months. 5 months. 5 months of deceit. 5 months of her claiming to be at the gym, at the store, at book club. 5 months of her kissing me goodnight. 5 months of her lying beside me in bed, allowing me to believe that our relationship was intact. "Does Derek know that Sophia saw you two together?" Rachel's face blanched. "What?" "Our daughter saw you and Derek at the Riverside Hotel 3 weeks ago. She watched you hold his hand. She watched him kiss your neck. She's 10 years old, Rachel, and she's been carrying this burden alone because she was too afraid to tell me." Rachel rose to her feet. "Marcus, I'm not finished," I stated, my voice calm, icy calm. The kind of calm that stems from years of training to remain composed when one's world is disintegrating. "Derek humiliated me in front of Sophia 2 days ago. He told her that I wasn't good enough at my job, that I couldn't even afford to pick her up on time. And now I understand why he felt so comfortable doing that. He felt like he had power over me because he'd been inside my wife, because he was enacting some fantasy where he's superior to me, stronger, more important than me." "Marcus, it's not like that." "Then what is it like? Explain it to me." She offered no reply, just stood there. In that moment, I realized she didn't grasp the magnitude of her actions. Not truly. She didn't comprehend that she had provided Derek a weapon to use against me. She didn't understand that she had placed our daughter in the midst of her affair. She didn't comprehend that she had shattered something that would take years to mend, if it could be mended at all. "I want you to pack a bag," I said quietly. "You're going to stay at your sister's house for a few days. I'm going to call my lawyer tomorrow, and we're going to initiate divorce proceedings." She began to cry then, reaching for me. "Marcus, please." I made a mistake. I was lonely. Derek paid attention to me, and "Stop," I commanded. "I don't want to hear it. Not right now. Right now, I need you away from my daughter, and I need to figure out what comes next." She departed an hour later, a suitcase in hand, her eyes swollen with tears. I sat in the darkened living room after she was gone, contemplating all the circumstances that had culminated in this moment. Derek's cruelty, Rachel's infidelity, Sophia's silent knowledge, and I considered what I had to do next. My SEAL brothers had always told me that I excelled at one thing: solving problems, neutralizing threats, taking decisive action when everyone else was paralyzed. It was time to employ those skills for something of true importance. It was time to ensure Derek paid for his transgressions, not with violence, I was beyond that now, but through other, more effective means, ways that would utterly dismantle him. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and a cup of cold coffee, meticulously documenting everything, every text message I could recall, every instance Rachel had claimed to be somewhere she wasn't, every occasion Derek had been cruel or dismissive towards me at work, every unprofessional or demeaning comment he had made. I established a new email account, entirely separate from my primary one, and created a folder on my laptop where I would save all the evidence I was about to collect. No emotion, no rage, just verifiable facts, unassailable evidence. It was then that a crucial realization struck me. I was no longer angry. Anger was a luxury I could not afford. Anger clouds judgment. Anger makes one reactive instead of strategic. And I had spent 15 years in the Navy SEAL teams learning how to remain strategic when everything around you is engulfed in flames. The next morning, Sophia inquired about her mother. I explained that Mom was staying at Aunt Jennifer's house for a little while and that sometimes grown-ups required space to sort things out. She asked no further questions, simply ate her cereal and left for school. At work, I was an apparition. I attended meetings, performed my duties, and maintained a professional and courteous demeanor with everyone except Derek. With him, I was cold, aloof. I did not avoid him, as that would have aroused suspicion, but neither did I seek him out, and when he attempted to engage me in conversation, I kept my responses brief, professional, devoid of emotion. 2 days later, Rachel called. She was crying. She expressed a desire to talk, to meet. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop on neutral ground, not her sister's place, not my house, but a public venue where she could not create a scene. She wore no makeup, and her eyes were swollen from weeping. She appeared small, smaller than I had ever seen her. "I've been thinking about what you said," she began, before I even sat down. "And I want to make this right. I want to come home. I want to fix this." I ordered a coffee before responding, needing a moment to carefully select my words. "Rachel, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Not for me, for Sophia." She nodded, awaiting my question. "Did Derek ever say anything to you about me, about my job, my performance, my value as a person?" Her face flushed. She looked away. "Tell me." "He said a lot of things. He said you were stagnant, that you'd never move up in the company, that you were comfortable being mediocre." She hesitated. "He said what?" "He said you weren't good enough for me, that I deserved better, that he could give me the life I wanted while you were just going through the motions." There it was. That was the manipulation. That was Derek planting insidious seeds in her mind, causing her to doubt me, making her feel as though she was settling. It was a sophisticated cruelty, the kind that succeeds precisely because it targets a genuine insecurity, the fear that perhaps you are not enough. "Did you believe him?" I asked delicately. "At first, no, but after a while, after he kept saying it, I started to wonder if maybe he was right. Maybe I was just being practical." "You were having an affair because Derek Hartwell told you that you deserved better than me." "It wasn't just that. It was the attention. It was feeling wanted. It was betrayal," I stated quietly. "It was lying to Sophia. It was putting our 10-year-old daughter in the position of knowing something that would destroy her family. And you didn't even consider that. You didn't even think about her." Rachel began to weep anew. I know that now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "I'm filing for divorce," I informed her. "I'm going to seek full custody of Sophia, and I'm going to ensure that Derek Hartwell never again has the opportunity to manipulate anyone." She reached across the table to grasp my hand, but I withdrew it. "Marcus, please, please don't do this. Please don't take Sophia away from me." "You made your choices, Rachel. Sophia's visits with you will continue, but they will be supervised until I am absolutely certain that you won't allow Derek or anyone like him to sway your judgment regarding our daughter's safety and welfare." "How can you be so emotionally detached about this?" she queried. "Because I must be," I responded. "The alternative is permitting my rage to demolish everything, and I refuse to do that. I won't give Derek the satisfaction of transforming me into an individual consumed by fury. Instead, I'll be strategic. I will be meticulous, ensuring that justice truly carries weight." I rose, preparing to depart. "Marcus, wait. What exactly do you intend to do?" I regarded her for an extended moment. "I'm going to leverage my strengths. I'm going to resolve this predicament." Leaving the coffee shop, I drove directly to a private investigator's office in downtown, a location I had meticulously researched. The investigator, Vincent Cross, possessed 2 decades of experience in corporate investigations. Seated opposite him in his modest office, I recounted the entire narrative. "I require comprehensive documentation," I stated. "Hotel records, emails, text messages, any evidence of an inappropriate relationship between my boss and my wife. However, I also need you to delve into his professional conduct. If he's been this indiscreet with an affair, he's likely been reckless in other areas. I need to ascertain if he's violated company policy, harassed other employees, or if there's anything in his professional history that we can utilize." Vincent offered a smile, not one of warmth, but of professional understanding. The smile of a man who fully grasped the gravity of my request. "This will be expensive," he cautioned. "Financial considerations are not an issue. I need results."
"How quickly?" "Expeditiously." He nodded. 2 weeks. I can provide preliminary findings within that time frame. Proceed." Upon leaving his office, I experienced an emotion unfamiliar since Rachel's affair confession. A sense of control. I felt empowered, as though I were actively addressing the situation. I felt I was safeguarding my daughter by ensuring the man who had humiliated her and betrayed our family would face tangible repercussions. Derek Hartwell was utterly unaware of what was on the horizon. 2 weeks later, I found myself back in Vincent's office, and the landscape had irrevocably shifted. On the surface, daily life remained unchanged. I continued my work, fulfilled my duties, picked up Sophia from school, assisted with her homework, and ensured she felt secure and cherished. Yet beneath this veneer, a fundamental change had occurred. I had made a choice that would redefine everything. Vincent slid a folder across his desk. Inside were hotel records, credit card statements, photographs, and numerous emails. Derek and Rachel had been careless, occasionally using their work emails, convinced they would go unnoticed. They had charged hotel stays to personal credit cards. They had strewn digital breadcrumbs everywhere. But that wasn't the most intriguing discovery.
"Your boss exhibits a pattern," Vincent remarked, leaning back in his chair. "The affair with your wife isn't his first. There's a woman in accounting named Melissa Chun. She filed a harassment complaint 3 years ago. The company quietly settled. Before that, a woman in HR, Jessica Morrison, resigned after Derek made unwelcome advances. And prior to that—" "How many?" I interjected. "At least 6 for whom I've found documented evidence. There could be more."
Some women were either too intimidated or too embarrassed to report it formally. A chilling sensation settled in my chest. This extended beyond just my wife. This was more than Derek sleeping with Rachel. This was indicative of a behavioral pattern. A man who had learned he could escape accountability because his wealth and position rendered him seemingly untouchable. And the embezzlement? Vincent smiled. "Now that's truly fascinating. Derek has been moving money, albeit in small increments. 50,000 here, 100,000 there.
It's cleverly disguised within expense reports and vendor payments, but it's unmistakably there. My accountant uncovered it. Over 3 years, he's transferred approximately $2 million into offshore accounts. $2 million. My boss had been pilfering from the company while simultaneously harassing and manipulating female employees. This transcended mere betrayal. This was criminal. "I can provide you with all of this," Vincent offered. "But I need to ask you something first. What do you intend to do with it?" I pondered Derek's disdainful smile when he humiliated me before Sophia. I recalled Rachel's confession. I considered the other women he had harmed. I thought about all the instances where I could have allowed anger to consume me, all the moments I might have resorted to violence or destruction. "I'm going to dismantle him," I stated, "but not in the manner you might anticipate." That evening, I contacted my lawyer, Patricia Summers, a specialist in family law with extensive connections across the legal and business communities. I divulged everything: the affair, the harassment pattern, the embezzlement. I presented Vincent's documentation. "This is serious," Patricia commented, her eyes scanning the pages. "Exceedingly serious. If you present this to the company's legal department and board of directors, Derek's career is over, potentially his freedom as well, depending on the outcome of the embezzlement investigation." "I know. And you are certain about this. You comprehend that once this process begins, it cannot be halted." "I'm certain."
The down morning, I did something that felt peculiar. I arrived at work and behaved as if everything were normal. I attended meetings with Derek. I listened as he barked orders and made jokes at others' expense. I observed his smile, feeling nothing. No anger, no fury, just the quiet conviction of someone who knows what is coming. During lunch, I met with Patricia at a restaurant near the office. We meticulously reviewed the strategy.
We will file a formal complaint with HR, she explained. We will present the documentation of the affair, but more crucially, we will provide evidence of the harassment pattern. We will furnish the company with Vincent's findings regarding the embezzlement. We will give them everything necessary to launch an internal investigation. What about the divorce? That's a separate matter. However, the documentation of Derek's infidelity and the affair with your wife will be integral to your custody case. It demonstrates poor judgment, ethical character issues, and is pertinent to establishing that Derek has been a detrimental influence in your family's life. And Derek, I asked, what becomes of him? Patricia regarded me carefully. That depends on the company's actions and law enforcement's involvement. But if they're astute, which they typically are when confronted with this caliber of evidence, they will terminate his employment immediately. They'll refer the embezzlement to the district attorney and likely settle with the other harassed employees to avert a larger lawsuit. He could potentially go to prison. The embezzlement alone could result in a 5 to 10 year sentence if the DA chooses to prosecute aggressively. I nodded. That wasn't the primary objective, but it was an accepted consequence. I had come to terms with that long ago. That afternoon, I met with the company's HR director and general counsel. Patricia accompanied me. I presented Vincent's documentation, photographs, emails, hotel records, and credit card statements. I provided the names of the other women Derek had harassed, and I told them every detail. The HR director's complexion shifted from red to white to a pale gray as she perused the files. The general counsel remained mostly silent, but I could observe him calculating the legal liability, the potential lawsuits, the damage control.
"Why are you bringing this to us?" the general counsel inquired. "Why not simply go to the police?" "Because I wish to handle this appropriately," I asserted. "I want the company to accept responsibility for failing to protect its employees. I want the women he harassed to have a path to justice that doesn't necessitate them reliving their trauma in a criminal courtroom. And I want Derek's actions to have truly significant consequences. And in exchange? In exchange, I am offering you the opportunity to address this internally before law enforcement becomes involved. That is a courtesy I could have chosen not to extend." The HR director and general counsel exchanged glances. I could sense their realization that I held all the authority in this situation, that I had presented them with sufficient evidence to decimate the company's reputation if they failed to act. "We will need to conduct an investigation," the general counsel finally stated.
"You possess everything you require to conduct that investigation. I am giving you 2 weeks to determine your course of action. After that, if Derek has not been terminated and if the company has not initiated a formal investigation into the embezzlement, we will proceed to the police and the media." I stood. Patricia neatly gathered the files. As we exited that office, I felt a profound sense of resolution settle within me. I had done it. The wheels were in motion. There was no turning back now. That night, Sophia asked if Mommy would be home soon. "Not for a while, sweetie," I told her. "But I want you to understand that everything unfolding is because of my love for you, and because I am going to ensure your safety and that those who harm you face accountability for their actions." She didn't comprehend it yet. She would, eventually. But for now, she simply hugged me and asked if we could order pizza for dinner. We ordered pizza and watched a movie. I held my daughter close, knowing that whatever came next, I had acted correctly. Not in an angry way, not in a violent way, but in the right way. 14 days. That's how long the company took to respond.
14 days of Derek sauntering around the office as if nothing had changed. 14 days of him making remarks in meetings, sending emails, acting utterly untouchable. I observed him, and I no longer felt anger. I felt pity. He was a man existing on borrowed time, completely oblivious. On day 15, everything erupted. The General Counsel called an emergency meeting with Derek. Though I wasn't present, the details later reached me. He was terminated instantly. The grounds cited were irrefutable proof of embezzlement and harassment, with the matter being escalated to law enforcement and the company's board of directors. He was escorted from the premises, a box of personal effects in hand, under the watchful eyes of security personnel. Derek's attempts to contest the decision, even with legal counsel claiming the affair was consensual and the embezzlement accusations groundless, proved futile against the watertight documentation Vincent had meticulously prepared. Crucially, the women affected stepped forward. Once Derek was out and the company's commitment to accountability became undeniable, other harassed employees began to speak. Melissa Chun from accounting provided a formal statement, while Jessica Morrison from HR returned to give a deposition. A marketing colleague, Tara Williams, recounted how Derek had cornered her in a supply closet 3 years prior, attempting to kiss her, an incident she'd been too terrified to report until now. The company's legal team contacted Patricia to discuss settlements. Financial compensation was offered to the women Derek had harassed, as well as to Rachel and me, though we declined. For us, the pursuit was not monetary, it was for justice. However, an unforeseen development unfolded. One afternoon, I received a call from Detective James Morrison of the District Attorney's Office, who wished to meet regarding Derek Hartwell. We met at a coffee shop where he outlined their findings. "The embezzlement is significant," he stated, stirring his coffee. $2 million over 3 years. We've traced it to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and are collaborating with federal authorities to access those records. But here's what's truly compelling. We uncovered additional irregularities. Derek has been misusing company funds for personal expenses, forging invoices and bending rules in a manner that suggests a deliberate, ongoing calculation rather than impulsive acts. He will unquestionably face charges. We're currently building our case. While we may need your testimony regarding the harassment and affair to establish motive and character, based on our current evidence, we are confident in filing charges for embezzlement, wire fraud, and potentially securities fraud, pending further discoveries. There's something else, Detective Morrison added. We found evidence that Derek was planning to flee the country. We discovered plane tickets booked under an alias and a new passport application in process. If you hadn't come forward when you did, if you hadn't provided that documentation, he would have vanished. He would have escaped to the Cayman Islands with $2 million of the company's money, and we likely would never have apprehended him. I reflected on this. Derek escaping, starting a new life elsewhere with stolen funds, evading all consequences. You prevented that, Detective Morrison affirmed. You and your investigator provided us with enough information to act swiftly, capturing him before he could disappear. The following week, Patricia and I met to discuss the custody case. Rachel's lawyer had contacted her. Rachel was willing to negotiate. She's offering to agree to your custody terms, Patricia informed me. Full custody for you. She's requesting supervised visitation, which aligns with your original preference, and despite her current limited income, she's prepared to pay child support. Furthermore, she's agreed to undergo counseling and anger management before requesting unsupervised visitation. How long? I inquired. She suggests 2 years of supervised visitation, followed by a review of the arrangement based on her therapeutic progress and demonstrated judgment. 2 years struck me as reasonable. It would allow Sophia time to process the events, Rachel time to comprehend the damage she'd inflicted, and me time to ensure my daughter understood that her mother's choices were not her father's fault. I accepted the terms. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks later, swiftly, as Rachel had ceased fighting, recognizing her defeat and seeking to mitigate further damage. I felt no triumph,
only exhaustion. Yet there remained one final task. I sought out Robert Kane, Derek's lawyer, whose defense was visibly unraveling each day. In his office, I presented an offer. Derek can plead guilty, I stated. He can accept responsibility for his actions and cooperate with law enforcement. In return, I will forego additional civil litigation, refrain from contacting the media, and keep the story out of the public eye. Robert stared at me as if I were irrational. "Why would you do that?" he asked. "Because my objective isn't to destroy him further. It's to ensure he faces consequences and understands the gravity of his actions. A public trial where he must hear his victims recount his abuse will be more harrowing than any prison sentence. So he has a choice: fight this and have his crimes publicly dissected by reporters in court, or plead guilty and serve his time quietly." "I'll convey the offer," Robert responded. Derek accepted the deal. He pleaded guilty to embezzlement, wire fraud, and securities fraud, receiving an 8-year sentence in federal prison. He is currently serving his term in a minimum security facility upstate, and honestly, I haven't given him much thought since. My focus is on Sophia, on rebuilding her trust, and on ensuring she understands that while some people will try to harm you, there are also those who will champion you without succumbing to anger in the process. The investigation into Derek did not conclude with his guilty plea. If anything, it intensified. Once the district attorney began unraveling the threads, a cascade of revelations followed. The company's internal investigation exposed that Derek had not merely stolen from the firm. He had systematically concealed his actions by falsifying reports and coercing subordinates to approve fraudulent expenses. 3 middle managers came forward, testifying that Derek had threatened their employment if they questioned his expenditures. One, Thomas Bradley from accounting, had attempted to report discrepancies 2 years prior, only for Derek to arrange his transfer to another department and make his professional life unbearable until Thomas eventually resigned. The company's board of directors recognized a colossal liability looming. Had they been aware of Derek's misconduct and remained passive, they faced potential shareholder lawsuits. However, by demonstrating swift, decisive action upon learning the truth, they might contain the damage. Consequently, they fully cooperated with the investigation, surrendering all communications and documentation. They emphasized their commitment to accountability for their oversight failures. Yet, this cooperation came with a cost. The company issued a public statement announcing Derek Hartwell's termination for cause, citing evidence of embezzlement, harassment, and misconduct. They declared a comprehensive internal audit of all his financial transactions and pledged settlements to all employees who had experienced harassment or misconduct. The press immediately seized upon the story. Local news outlets ran features, "Local executive accused of sexual harassment and embezzlement." Business journals delved deeper, uncovering details about offshore accounts, a long-standing pattern of harassment, and evidence that the company had been aware of some harassment incidents, quietly paying off victims without addressing the root problem. Derek's name became ubiquitous, his reputation utterly destroyed. I was largely absent from these reports. Patricia had meticulously ensured my name remained out of the public record as much as possible, referring to me merely as a former employee or anonymous witness. Yet within the business community, people knew. Whispers circulated about the Mavy guy who'd worked in IT and somehow brought down the executive vice president. Some respected me for it, others feared me, and I'm sure some believed I was simply settling a personal vendetta. I gave no thought to their opinions. What mattered was Derek's removal, the justice and compensation for his other victims, and Sophia's safety. However, approximately 6 months after Derek's guilty plea, something unexpected occurred. A woman named Elena Rodriguez visited Patricia's office. Elena, who had worked in Derek's department, had witnessed his harassment of other employees. She had also observed something else, something neither Vincent nor the investigators had uncovered. Derek had been pilfering from individual employees' expense accounts,
not solely from company funds. These were personal reimbursements for work-related travel and meals, small-scale skimming from dozens of individuals, ranging from $50 to a few $100s.
Most people likely never noticed, but cumulatively, it amounted to an additional $300,000 over 2 years. Elena possessed documentation, spreadsheets, and irrefutable evidence. "Why didn't you come forward sooner?" Patricia asked her. "Because I was terrified," Elena replied. Derek explicitly warned that anyone who spoke about his behavior would be fired. He claimed to have connections and the power to ruin careers. I simply kept my head down and tried to survive. Based on Elena's evidence, Patricia filed additional charges against Derek. Federal prosecutors expanded the charges against him for fraud, ultimately extending Derek's sentence by an additional 3 years, bringing the total to 11. The company also uncovered that Derek had been leveraging his position to secure kickbacks from vendors, directing business to firms that compensated him personally. This discovery initiated an SEC investigation, which led to further charges against other company executives who had been aware of these dealings and remained silent. By the time the process concluded, Derek's actions had ignited investigations that reached far beyond his individual involvement. The company was compelled to overhaul its entire oversight framework, implement new compliance protocols, and dismiss several executives who had tacitly enabled Derek's behavior. The stock price plummeted by 15%, triggering shareholder lawsuits and federal audits. All these repercussions stemmed from Derek's decision to publicly humiliate me in front of my daughter, and his belief that he could take whatever he desired, money, women, respect, without facing any accountability. I observed the unfolding events from a distance, yet I felt no satisfaction or vindication. Instead, I simply felt that justice was operating as it should, with Derek's actions incurring genuine, lasting consequences. 3 months into Derek's prison term, I received an unheralded visitor, Thomas Bradley, the accountant Derek had forced out of the company. Thomas, now employed at a different firm, wanted to express his gratitude. "I knew something was amiss," Thomas confided, seated in my living room. "I attempted to report it, and Derek utterly destroyed me for it. I was furious and wounded. I even wondered if it was my fault. Perhaps I had misinterpreted things. But then, when your investigation emerged, when everything was laid bare, I realized I wasn't crazy. I wasn't wrong. Derek truly had been stealing, and I was right to try and report it." "I'm sorry he treated you in such a manner," I replied. "I regret that it required someone like you, someone with the resources and insight to retaliate, to finally put a stop to him." Thomas reflected. "Imagine how many women would still be subjected to harassment if you hadn't possessed the funds for a private investigator. Imagine how much more Derek would have illicitly acquired if he hadn't been apprehended. For most individuals, there is no justice. There is only survival." After Thomas departed, his words resonated with me. He was right. I had distinct advantages others lacked: training, discipline, financial means, and the self-assurance cultivated from a military background. I had access to a proficient lawyer and a skilled investigator. Many people in similar predicaments never attain justice because they cannot afford to contest it. But Sophia had received her justice. She had a father who fought for her, utilizing every available tool. And that was significant. That was everything. 9 months into Derek's incarceration, an unforeseen development occurred. I was at home assisting Sophia with her homework when Patricia called. Her voice carried an unfamiliar urgency. "We need to meet," she stated. "Tonight. Bring any documentation you possess regarding Derek's accounts and the offshore transfers."
"What has happened?" I inquired.
"Just meet me. 1 hour. My office."
I arranged for a sitter for Sophia and drove to Patricia's downtown office. She awaited me alongside a federal prosecutor named Susan Chun and Detective Morrison. "We uncovered something," Susan revealed, spreading documents across Patricia's conference table. "Something that eluded the initial investigation because we didn't know where to direct our search. Derek's embezzlement wasn't arbitrary. It was deliberate.
It was targeted. Targeted at what? I asked. At the company's CEO and board members, Detective Morrison clarified. Derek was blackmailing them. My stomach lurched. Susan elaborated that Derek had discovered the CEO, a man named Richard Stratton, was illicitly using company funds to support a second family in another state. Derek unearthed the evidence, property purchases, monthly payments, and falsified business expenses designed to conceal everything. Instead of reporting it, Derek exploited this information as leverage. He had been extorting money from Stratton for 5 years, with Stratton approving Derek's fraudulent expenses in exchange for Derek's silence about his own extramarital affair and embezzlement. But there's more, Detective Morrison continued. We unearthed evidence that Derek wasn't solely blackmailing the CEO. He uncovered similar vulnerabilities with 3 board members. One of them had been siphoning off funds himself. Another had been implicated in covering up a workplace safety violation that led to an employee's death. A third had been misusing company resources to finance a gambling addiction. Derek possessed compromising information on all of them. I understand now, I interjected. Precisely, Susan affirmed. Derek's embezzlement was partly self-enrichment, but it also served as payment for his silence. The CEO was compensating him to conceal the second family. The board members permitted his financial malfeasance to persist because Derek held leverage over them. This is far more extensive than we initially believed, Detective Morrison declared. This isn't merely about Derek stealing money. This concerns systemic corruption at the highest echelons of the company. Derek was operating as a blackmailer, extortionist, and embezzler simultaneously. I leaned back in my chair, the intricacy of the web far exceeding my previous comprehension. What does this signify? I questioned. It signifies new charges, Susan asserted, against Derek for extortion and blackmail. It means investigations into the CEO and the board members. It means the company will face significantly more severe repercussions than we initially anticipated. It means people are going to prison, including the CEO. Potentially, I clarified. Depends on the evidence we can gather and how cooperative he chooses to be. The subsequent 72 hours erupted into pandemonium. Federal prosecutors acted swiftly, subpoenaing records from the CEO's personal bank accounts and interrogating the board members. They began constructing cases for extortion, bribery, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The CEO, Richard Stratton, immediately retained legal counsel but also commenced cooperation. He provided a statement to prosecutors in exchange for immunity concerning the blackmail aspect of the scheme. He admitted to the second family, to the embezzlement, and to paying Derek for his silence. The board members initially resisted, but one, the individual who had concealed the workplace safety violation, realized he faced potential criminal charges for negligent homicide. He cooperated in exchange for a plea agreement on the embezzlement charges. Within a week, federal indictments were issued against 5 individuals: Derek, the CEO, and 3 board members. The company announced the CEO's immediate departure pending the outcome of the federal investigation and the resignation of the 3 board members. They also declared a complete overhaul of their corporate governance and compliance systems. The stock price plummeted. Shareholders initiated lawsuits, and major clients began seeking alternative vendors. The company that had appeared so robust, powerful, and impregnable 6 months prior was now in a precipitous decline. And Derek, confined to his federal prison cell, became even more invaluable to prosecutors. He was now the pivotal witness in the cases against the CEO and board members. Federal prosecutors extended him a deal: testimony in exchange for a reduced sentence. I learned about this through Patricia, who had maintained communication with Susan throughout the investigation. He's going to testify? I inquired. Yes, Derek is astute enough to comprehend that his best opportunity for a reduced sentence lies in full cooperation with the government. He will testify against all 5 defendants, the CEO, the board members, and potentially even against himself to establish the pattern of corruption.
How much time will be subtracted from his sentence? I asked. Probably 5 to 7 years if the testimony is substantial and credible, Patricia estimated. So instead of 11 years, he's looking at 4 to 6. I felt an internal shift. This wasn't justice as I had envisioned it. This was Derek becoming a cooperating witness. This was Derek potentially receiving a reduced sentence because he chose to expose those who had been paying for his silence. However, it was also Derek admitting his culpability in open court, describing his own crimes, his own cruelty, his own willingness to profit from blackmail and extortion. It was Derek being completely exposed. The trials did not commence until a year later. By then, much had transformed. I was employed at a new company, having been promoted to Director of IT Security, a position I secured partly due to my reputation in the business community as someone courageous enough to confront corruption.
People either respected that, or they feared me. Either way, the outcome was identical. Sophia was in 6th grade and thriving. She attended therapy, speaking with a counselor about the events involving her parents. The counselor affirmed she was processing things healthily, understanding that her parents' actions were not her fault. Rachel resided in a small apartment and worked as a paralegal. She was clean, maintained no contact with Derek, avoided inappropriate relationships, and lived without drama. She paid child support and saw Sophia during supervised visits, slowly rebuilding a relationship with our daughter founded on honesty and accountability. When the trials finally occurred, I did not attend. I had no need to. I had already secured what truly mattered. Derek testified for 3 days, meticulously detailing his embezzlement, his blackmail scheme, the payments he received from the CEO and board members, and even his affair with Rachel and his harassment of female employees. By the time he concluded, he was a completely broken man, exposed, ashamed, and facing years in prison. The CEO received a 6-year prison sentence following his conviction for embezzlement, conspiracy, and bribery. 2 board members admitted guilt, leading to sentences varying between 3 and 5 years. The 3rd board member, implicated in obscuring a workplace safety violation, was found guilty of obstruction of justice and sentenced to 4 years. Derek's initial 8-year sentence was extended by an additional 5 years, but his cooperation ultimately reduced his total incarceration to 7 years. He anticipates release in approximately 5 years, contingent on good behavior. Justice, as commonly perceived, often takes unexpected forms. It can be complex. Guilty individuals sometimes receive reduced sentences for cooperating with authorities. Occasionally, influential figures share prison cells with those of lesser power. Yet, it remains justice. It remains accountability. And that was paramount. With Derek's departure and the legal proceedings concluded, a noticeable transformation occurred within our home. This shift wasn't immediate, akin to flipping a switch, but gradually, over several months, our house evolved into a sanctuary for genuine healing rather than mere survival. Sophia, now 12, was still grappling with the past events. Her therapist, Dr. Michelle Hayes, observed that she was remarkably resilient, especially considering her experiences. Children possess an incredible capacity for resilience, Dr. Hayes shared during a family session. However, Sophia's resilience stems from a unique source. She has a father who championed her without succumbing to anger or resentment. This teaches her a profound lesson on navigating betrayal and pain. I didn't perceive my actions as extraordinary. I simply did what was necessary. Yet I began to grasp that perhaps that was the essence of it. Perhaps consistent, calm adherence to what is right constituted its own formidable strength. Sophia and I began engaging in candid conversations about what transpired. These weren't burdensome, overwhelming discussions designed to force trauma processing, but rather honest exchanges where she could pose questions and I could offer truthful answers. "Dad, why did Mom cheat on you?" she inquired one afternoon as we prepared pizza for dinner. "Because she made a poor decision," I replied. She was unhappy with herself, and instead of addressing that, she sought validation from someone else. Derek told her what she wanted to hear. He made her feel special and desired. For a time, that was sufficient to make her overlook the pain she was inflicting on both of us. "Do you hate her?" she asked. "No, sweetheart, I don't hate her. I was angry for a long time, but hate? That's a venom that only harms the one who harbors it. So I released that hate a long time ago." "But you're not together anymore." "No, because trust is irrevocably broken, and even though I forgive her, I cannot forget. I cannot unlearn what she did. And that's acceptable. That is the consequence of her choices." Sophia remained silent for a moment, spreading sauce on the pizza dough. "I'm glad you didn't hate her," she finally said. "I'm glad you did the right thing, even when you were mad." That moment, that simple declaration from my daughter, held more significance to me than all our legal victories combined. I also began empowering Sophia to understand her own strength and agency. I wanted her to comprehend that our family's ordeal wasn't her fault, but more importantly, that she possessed the capacity to protect and advocate for herself. I enrolled her in martial arts classes, not to train her as a fighter, but to instill an understanding of her inherent physical and mental capabilities. She embraced it naturally, exhibiting focus, discipline, and bravery. When she earned her yellow belt, I watched from the audience, tears welling in my eyes. "I did it, Dad!" she exclaimed, rushing to me after the ceremony. "You certainly did," I affirmed, pulling her close. "And you know what? That's what you do when something is challenging. You don't surrender. You don't let fear paralyze you. You persevere until you achieve your objective." She met my gaze with understanding. I believe she recognized I wasn't just speaking about martial arts. Approximately 18 months after supervised visits commenced, Rachel requested unsupervised visitation. Her therapist, her lawyer, and I collectively agreed it was appropriate. The supervised visitation had fulfilled its purpose. Rachel had demonstrably committed to change. She was actively engaged in therapy, establishing a stable life, and displaying genuine remorse for her actions. "I want you to understand something," Rachel conveyed when we met to discuss the transition to unsupervised visitation. "I've spent a great deal of time examining why I made the choices I did, and I've come to realize that I was evading myself, my own insecurities and failures. I attempted to fill that void with Derek's attention. It was wrong. It was selfish. And I hurt the two people I cherish most in the world." "I know," I responded. "I'm not seeking forgiveness. I know that's something I must earn over time. But I am asking for the opportunity to be a better mother moving forward, to be honest with Sophia about my mistakes so she can learn from them instead of repeating them." "I believe that's a sound plan," I confirmed. Sophia's relationship with her mother began a slow, careful, yet genuine process of rebuilding. Rachel wasn't striving for perfection or pretending nothing had happened. She was simply being honest, present, and dedicated to the responsibilities of a good parent. One evening, about 2 years after everything had unraveled, Sophia and I sat on the back porch, watching the sunset. She was 14 now, blossoming into a young woman, yet in many ways she remained my little girl. "Dad, do you ever think about Mr. Derek?" she asked. "Sometimes," I admitted honestly. "Not with anger anymore, just... I think about what he did, and I'm glad he's in prison. I'm glad he can't harm anyone else." "Do you think he's sorry?" "I think he's sorry he was caught. I don't know if he's truly remorseful for what he did. Some people never reach that point. But that's no longer my concern to resolve." "I'm glad you fought for me," Sophia said. "I'm glad you didn't just let it go. I'm glad you did the right thing even when it was difficult." I drew her close, and we sat watching the sun descend over the neighborhood. The light imbued everything with a golden, soft glow. A profound sense of peace settled over me, a feeling I hadn't experienced in a very long time. "I'll always fight for you," I assured her. Always. 3 years after Derek's imprisonment, Rachel called me. Her voice was markedly different, trembling, uncertain. "Can we meet?" she inquired. "Not with lawyers, not in a formal setting, just, can we talk?" I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop on a Saturday afternoon. Sophia was at a friend's house, so I had the time. I wasn't certain what Rachel wanted, but my curiosity was piqued. She appeared altered, older, like someone etched by experiences that had prematurely aged her. She ordered a coffee, and we settled at a small corner table. "I've been contemplating what to say for weeks," Rachel began, "and I still haven't found the right words, but I need to try." "Okay," I responded. "I've been in therapy for 3 years now, and my therapist has helped me comprehend the profound impact of my actions. Not just the affair, that was grievous enough, but the way I treated you, the way I lied to you, the way I placed Sophia in the epicenter of my own self-centeredness. I've carried so much shame about it, Marcus, so much guilt." I remained silent, simply listening. "Derek reached out to me," she continued, "about 6 months ago. He's in the minimum security prison and has limited contact with the outside world. He wrote me a letter asking if I'd visit him. He claimed he wanted to apologize. He said he wanted to make things right." "Did you go?" I asked. "No," she shook her head. "I discarded the letter, and then I called my therapist, and we discussed why he had written to me and what that implied. And I realized something. Derek was attempting to manipulate me again. He was trying to ease his conscience by obtaining my forgiveness. He wasn't genuinely invested in my healing or in rectifying things. He was solely concerned with assuaging his own guilt." Rachel took a sip of her coffee. "I'm telling you this because I want you to know that I'm not returning to him. I'm not allowing him back into my life in any capacity. But more than that, I wanted to genuinely apologize to you for everything." "I appreciate that," I said. "Do you? Because I've spent years wondering if you would ever truly forgive me, and I've come to realize that perhaps forgiveness isn't something you owe me. Perhaps all I can do is live my life differently and hope that eventually you can see that I am not the person I was." "I've already forgiven you, Rachel," I stated, realizing as I spoke that it was true. I had forgiven her, not because she deserved it, but because clinging to anger no longer served me or Sophia. "I forgave you a long time ago. That doesn't mean I trust you the way I once did. That doesn't mean we're going to reconcile, but I don't hate you, and I don't wish you ill. I simply want you to be a good mother to Sophia and to live a good life." Rachel's eyes welled with tears. "Thank you. That's more than I deserve." "It's not about what you deserve," I countered. "It's about my decision not to let what you did destroy me." "And I'm not. So, we're good. You and we're okay." Over the following year, Rachel diligently continued to rebuild her relationship with Sophia. It wasn't perfect. There were moments when Sophia would withdraw, moments when the pain resurfaced, but they navigated it honestly, without pretense. Sophia directly questioned Rachel about the affair one afternoon during one of their visits. "Why did you do it?" Sophia asked. "Why did you cheat on Dad?" Rachel offered no excuses. She confided in Sophia, admitting her deep self-dissatisfaction, the ego-driven choice she'd made, and how her lack of fortitude to confront her own issues had wounded those she cherished most in the world. "I'm sorry," Rachel articulated. "I apologize for placing you in a position where you were privy to my affair and compelled to bear that secret. I regret the pain I inflicted upon your father, and I'm sorry that my actions, rather than words, became a lesson in betrayal for you." Sophia inquired, "Are you a different person now?" "I am striving to be," Rachel responded. "Every day I endeavor to become a better person than I was, and I will continue this effort for the remainder of my life." This reply seemed to appease Sophia, not due to its perfection, but because of its undeniable honesty. Around the same period, I received an unexpected telephone call from Thomas Bradley, the accountant Derek had forced out of the company years prior. "I wanted to inform you of something," Thomas began. "I've launched a consulting firm dedicated to assisting companies in identifying financial fraud and corruption, and I wish to hire you as our Director of Security and Compliance. You possess the requisite experience, the reputation, and, most crucially,
the integrity this work demands. I accepted the position. It felt inherently right.
It felt like channeling all the anguish and upheaval of the preceding years into something that could genuinely benefit others. I dedicated my time to helping organizations detect corruption, training their personnel, and implementing systems to prevent embezzlement and fraud. One of our initial clients was a tech startup where a senior executive had been engaging in embezzlement. We identified it promptly. We facilitated the implementation of systems to avert future occurrences and collaborated with the company to foster a culture where employees felt empowered to report suspicious behavior without fear of retaliation. It was then that a profound realization dawned on me. Derek's transgressions, his cruelty, his manipulation, all of it had inadvertently steered me toward work of genuine significance, work that was preventing other companies and families from enduring what we had. Justice, I understood, isn't always about retribution. Sometimes it's about transformation. 5 years after Derek's incarceration, I stood on a beach at sunset with my daughter. She was now 17, on the cusp of womanhood, almost prepared to navigate the world on her own terms. We spoke little, simply standing there, observing the waves roll in, watching the fading light paint everything in hues of gold and crimson. The ocean possesses a unique ability to provide perspective, diminishing the magnitude of one's problems and illuminating the vastness of life beyond any singular moment of pain or betrayal. "Dad, can I ask you something?" Sophia ventured. "Always." "Do you ever regret how you managed the situation with Derek and Mom? Do you ever wish you had acted differently?" I considered this question meticulously. I recalled the instant I discovered the affair. I contemplated the unbridled rage I could have allowed to consume me. I thought of the violence I might have chosen. And then I reflected on the path I actually took, the strategic one, the disciplined one, the one that necessitated maintaining composure when every fiber of my being yearned to erupt. "No," I finally stated. "I don't regret it because the way I handled it imparted a lesson to you that no amount of words ever could have. It taught you that strength isn't about how loudly you can shout or how forcefully you can strike. It's about maintaining a clear mind when your world is crumbling. It's about upholding what is right, even when doing wrong might offer immediate gratification." "I'm proud of you," Sophia declared. "I know I don't say it often enough, but I truly am." Those 6 words, "I'm proud of you," held greater significance for me than any triumph or legal outcome ever could. That was the genuine victory. That was the affirmation that I had done something right. We strolled along the beach for a while longer, and then Sophia posed a question that brought me to an abrupt halt. "Do you think you'll ever marry again?" I hadn't given it much thought. My focus had been entirely on being a good father, on establishing a stable life for Sophia, and on my work with Thomas's consulting firm. Romance felt like an element belonging to a different chapter of my life. "Perhaps," I replied, "if I meet someone who understands who I am and what I've experienced. But I'm not actively seeking it. It will happen if it's meant to happen." "Good," Sophia affirmed, "because I want you to be happy, Dad. Not just okay, truly happy." "I am happy," I declared, and I realized its truth. I was happy, though not in the way I had been before everything disintegrated. That past happiness was built on illusions. This happiness was deeper. It was earned. It was built upon solid foundations. We drove home as the last vestiges of light faded from the sky. Sophia was silent, gazing out the window, engrossed in her own contemplations. I knew she was processing a great deal. She was at that pivotal age where childhood was drawing to a close and adulthood was commencing. She was discerning who she wished to be and the kind of person she aspired to become. At one point, she turned to me and stated, "I'm going to be a lawyer. Yes, I want to help individuals who have been harmed by people like Derek. I want to ensure that those who commit illicit acts genuinely face consequences. I want to embody the kind of person who champions justice, just as you did." I felt something good break open in my chest.
the kind of breaking that allows light to pour in. That's a beautiful dream, I remarked. It's not just a dream, Sophia corrected. It's what I'm going to do. To my viewers, before I conclude, I need to address you directly. If you are watching this story, if you have remained with Marcus and Sophia through all of this, I extend my gratitude. Thank you for believing in the power of doing what is right, even when it is arduous. Thank you for comprehending that true strength is not about vengeance or aggression. It is about dignity. It is about staying true to yourself when everything is falling apart. I have a question for you. Where are you watching from? Which country are you in? Please share your city or country in the comments below. I am eager to know who is out there listening to these stories with me. Moreover, what kind of stories do you wish to hear next? Do you desire more narratives of betrayal? Do you crave more tales of revenge? Do you seek stories about family conflict and injustice? Do you want accounts of Navy SEALs and military heroes? Comment below and tell me what resonates with your heart. Tell me what keeps you awake at night, wondering what transpires next. Like this video if you believe in justice administered appropriately. Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss the next incredible thriller, the next epic revenge story, the next narrative that will hold you spellbound until the very last second. I assure you, the stories are coming, the twists are coming, the moments that will make you gasp and shock you and keep you contemplating long after the video concludes. Because that is what we do here. We narrate stories about betrayal and heartbreak and quiet retribution and the kind of justice that truly matters. We tell stories about individuals who refuse to allow their circumstances to define them. We tell stories that remind you what it means to be human, to be strong, to be unbreakable. So, comment. Tell me where you are from. Tell me what stories you desire, and prepare yourself, because the next story will be even more incredible than this one. Marcus stood on that beach once more. 3 months later, Sophia was at college, embarking upon her first year as a pre-law student. She was destined to transform the world. I knew it with absolute certainty. I whispered something to the ocean, to the universe, to whatever force had guided me through the darkness and brought me to this place of illumination. Thank you, I whispered, for teaching me that the strongest people are not those who never break. They are the ones who break and then painstakingly rebuild themselves stronger than before. They are the ones who choose dignity over destruction. They are the ones who understand that some battles are won not with fists, but with integrity. The waves rolled in, the sun set, and Marcus finally grasped that the humiliation Derek had inflicted upon him in that office all those years ago, that very moment, had been the genesis of something extraordinary. It had been the moment everything shifted. It had been the moment he had been compelled to become the man his daughter needed him to be. Not through revenge, but through redemption. Not through destruction, but through justice. Not through anger, but through love.